Well, as you can see that from the response, you both have created a pretty powerful and inspiring film, and you've had a lot of great people behind that. So I do want to welcome our three panelists that are joining us. I'll give some a few quick bios, give you an opportunity to share some words, tell us a little bit about your thoughts, and then we will get into the Q&A section, okay? First of all, we have Dr. Steven Ungerleider. Dr. Ungerleider is a sports psychologist and best-selling author known for Faust Gold, Inside the East German Doping Machine. He is a founding trustee and the CEO of the Foundation for Global Sports Development and co-founder of Sidewinder Films. Dr. Ungerleider has received 3 Emmy nominations for his work on At the Heart of Gold, Inside the U.S. Gymnastics Scandals, and Munich 1972 and Beyond. Dr. Ungerleider serves on the International Paralympic Committee's Education Committee and on Game Over, Commission to Protect Young Athletes. Previously, he served on the Education and Ethics Committee of the World Anti-Doping Agency and the National Advisory Panel of the American Psychological Association. Dr. Ungerleider. Next up, we have Brooke Bumgardner. Brooke Bumgardner is one of the executive producers of Positive All the Way. As the Vice President of Communications at the Foundation for Global Sports Development and Sidewinder Films, Brooke has enjoyed many opportunities to celebrate the power adaptive sports can have on lives and in communities. With Positive All the Way, Brooke hopes to increase awareness about the importance of promotion and inclusion and accessibility and about the abilities and contributions of people with disabilities. Brooke? And last but not least, we have Paralympian Allison Compton. As a child growing up in Manhattan Beach, California, Allison Compton never allowed her prosthetic leg to sideline her from the hometown sport, playing volleyball on the beach. In elementary school and even on her competitive Division I high school team. Compton wasn't just determined, she was also better than nearly all of her classmates with 2 functioning legs. Proving that on a global stage, however, turned out to be more challenging than she had anticipated. For starters, there was no U.S. Paralympics volleyball team for women. So at the age of 18, Compton, who was born with an undeveloped femur, began training with the men's team instead. By the 2000 Sydney Games, she was good enough to make the official men's roster, but was denied the chance to compete based on her gender. Compton didn't give up. With the help of the USA Volleyball and the United States Olympic Committee, she formed a women's Paralympic volleyball team in time for Athens in 2004. In those games, Team USA took home the bronze, and it medaled in every Paralympic since. Allison Compton was a part of the Athlete Advisory Council for LA 2028 and is excited about the opportunity to host a Paralympics Games right here in her own city in 2028. Allison continues to be an advocate for women, and she currently lives in Manhattan Beach with her husband and 3 young daughters. Allison. All right, so Dr. Ungerleider, if you'd like to take a few minutes before we get into the Q&A, we'll have the 3 of you going to go through and just say some words.
Well, thanks, Mike and Lisa. I appreciate being here. Thank you all for attending. You know, this is a team sport. Putting together the film, my colleague Brooke Baumgartner and Melanie Raffel were really the great inspiration behind it. We've actually, at the Global Sports Foundation, we've been juggling a number of projects, including our recent Heart of Gold, which is about the Nassar trial and gymnastics horrific scandal of sexual assault. So we've been all working very, very hard the last couple of years. But with Positive All the Way, it's a great honor to be part of this project because Sir Philip Craven is a very dear friend. Not only do we work together, and he appointed me to the executive committee, but we have a very special friendship. He and his wife, Lady Jocelyn, are very close to Joanna and myself and our family. We've not only I've attended 15 Olympic Games over my career. I've been in sports medicine for 43 years. And within the last 15 years, really got steeped in the culture of the IPC, the International Paralympic Movement. Prior to that, the games were just, the traditional Olympic Games. But with Sir Philip and his family, I got introduced to this great culture. And I must tell you that this is a very, very special human being. Beyond our work together and our friendship, all of you are witnessing a very special human being. You saw the piece about the crisis in Rio with the funding being cut off. It's all true. Nothing was exaggerated. We were at dinner with Philip and Jocelyn, about 8 of us, the night before the games when he got the word, and we're having a nice dinner, and all of a sudden it was midnight, and Lady Jocelyn said, "Philip, we probably should end because you have to get up at 4:30 in the morning." And I looked at him and I said, "Philip, where are you going at 4:30 in the morning?" "Oh, I have to go see the president." I said, "The president?" "Yeah." "The president of who?" Of Brazil." "Oh, really?" "Well, it only gives you about 4 hours of sleep. It's fine." "What are you going to see the president about?" "We're out of money. We're absolutely out of money and should never have happened, but we're going to go and I'm going to make a strong appeal." And lo and behold, he did it and was able to secure the funds, and Rio was a very, very successful games. But that's just one of many stories I could tell you. Composure, about the fact that, if it was anybody else, they'd be bouncing off the walls a few hours before they had to ask the president for $18 million, whatever it was. So very special human being who stands by principle, by ethics and integrity. And it's a great honor for me to know him and talk with him, even though he has recently stepped down because his term expired. We talk on a regular basis. We Zoom. We had a nice Zoom birthday party for him last month. And I consider him a very, very special friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Brooke?
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming. I know evenings in college are valuable time for studying and socializing. So thank you for spending your evening with us and watching our film. Thank you, Mike and Lisa, for coordinating this, and Allison and Dr. Ungerleider for coming. Dr. Ungerleider spoke to why it was such an honor to create this film about the Paralympics and about Sir Philip. I think this film is great to view for Inclusion Week because I think so many of its points speak to the importance of inclusion, but also the benefits of inclusion. And I'm excited to talk a little bit more and answer any questions that you all may have about how we can be more inclusive to people with disabilities, what I've learned in making this film and working with adaptive sport, and anything else you might have. So thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. All right, and Allison?
Yes, I just, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks so much for having us. I'm honored to be a part of this beautiful film about a wonderful man and about the Paralympic movement, which is gaining a lot of momentum as we lead into Tokyo, and then we've got Paris, and then it'll be in LA. And very excited about that to have LA's first Paralympic Games. So I'm just, I happen to be in the right place, right time, and to help start and the volleyball team and start this movement, and I'm excited.
Great. Great. All right. Well, thank you. So we wanted to have a couple questions from the audience, and we do have a couple things that we do want to ask. And for the attendees, again, what you'll do is that you'll type into the Q&A section so that our panelists will be able to see those questions and go from there. So as we can see here, we'll go to the first one. This is a question for Stephen and Brooke. I mean, you've talked a little bit about that friendship that you have with, Sir Philip. What was really the big message that you wanted to portray? I mean, there's been a huge increase in awareness on a national level, but what were you hoping the film to do above and beyond that?
Brooke, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. That's a great question. We were initially inspired to create this film in 2016 when we watched everything unfold with the Russian doping issue at Rio. And the International Paralympic Committee was in a spot. They were in a tough spot and about their decision to make. And ultimately, they chose to protect the health and integrity of the athletes, but also the integrity of sport in general. And that speaks to the fact that the Paralympics is so much more than just about medals and winning. It has a much broader feeling and message. And I feel like that was a perfect example. Everything, the choices in Rio. And it was, like TJ Quinn said, he made it a moral issue from the start. They didn't try to hide behind procedural language, and that's very true. And we hope that we captured that in the film. Anything you wanted to add, Stephen?
Well, really well said. You stole a little of my thunder there. As somebody who has worked in the anti-doping field for, half of my career, at least 20 years, and served at the World Anti-Doping Agency, I'm sure most, if not all of you know, we have a serious crisis and have had for 2 decades around doping across the Olympic spectrum. And the East German situation with 10,000 athletes being forcibly doped by their government, and then the criminal trials attached to that in the 90s was very serious. And, we had hoped that around 2000, with the WADA code, where you have to take a pledge and sign an oath that you will not be using illegal stuff, would change. And I think it did change the movement. But what happened in Rio, just to echo Brooke's point, was something that most people, I don't think, realize, and we tried to portray this in the film. So the International Olympic Committee was faced, President Thomas Bach, head of the International Olympic Committee, the counterpart to Sir Philip, was faced with the McLaren report, which articulated that massive doping was going on in Russia, very similar to East Germany. In fact, we'd like to joke that they stole a page from the East German playbook with their doping, except they weren't that good because they got caught. And the Olympic Committee knew for over a year that this was going on, and they played politics with, should we let them in? Should we let some of them come in? Should we let them get retested? And a lot of gamesmanship. And a lot of it had to do with politics and money and corporate sponsorship. And it was very upsetting to all of us who've been in the Olympic family for decades. Sir Philip took a real position, a man who believes that you can't compromise medals over or morals, and that we have to stand with integrity and ethics. Now, it's one thing to say that and to go into a press conference and say, I will not go with the traditional model here, with the International Olympic Committee, who agreed to let the Russians at the 11th hour come forward. He said, I will not allow that. And as president of the International Paralympic, I met with my committee. We were up all night, and we had a very, very hard time trying to articulate our position. But it's clear that we are going to stand by our ethics. And he said to the world I will not allow the Russians to come for the International Paralympic Games. Now, you have to realize the ramifications. There were huge political pressure, huge financial pressure, everything you can imagine being thrown at him by corporations and television sponsors. And nobody had ever done this before. Nobody had gone against the grain and said, we're going to put a stop to this. And the backstory is that he took a tremendous amount of grief. There was a huge conflict that opened up and still today exists between the IOC and the IPC. But the point that we wanted to articulate was, here is a man who said, I'm standing on principle and ethics. If we don't put our foot down today and tell the world we are not going to tolerate doping, we are not going to play this mental and moral ethical game, it will never stop. It will just be a recycled situation where Russians, the Germans, the Americans, whoever it is at the period of time will come to our village and be cheating. And I'm not going to allow that. So for me, this was absolutely one of the most precious moments I've ever experienced in my 43 years of being part of the Olympic movement. This is a man who stands beyond principle, beyond ethics, and really put himself on the line. So once again, I'm proud to know him, and I'm proud to be associated with IPC because of the integrity that it holds.
Thank you. So we've got a question here in the audience.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can keep.
What would you say the biggest impact from this film has been that you guys have seen?
So her question was, what do you feel has been the biggest impact that you have seen from this film?
I'm happy to speak to that a little bit, but I wanted to give Allison or Stephen a chance if they wanted to say something. I'll real quick. A lot of the people who I've spoken with who have watched the film knew nothing about the Paralympics prior to watching. And they really didn't know much about the lives of people with disabilities either. And so I am really delighted that some friends of mine who really don't know what I do for work now have a deeper understanding of why I am so passionate about this as well. And they're starting to look at the world a little differently and see the barriers that our society has created. I believe that it's not the person who is disabled, it is society and structures that create barriers. And so I hope that your generation goes on and creates the changes that we really need for everyone to be able to contribute in the ways that society can benefit from.
I echo Brooke, just, from the people that I've spoken with, just people understanding what the Paralympics are. A lot of people didn't even know they were out there, and to have such a powerful film around such, an amazing, movement is only going to take everything to, keep that momentum going.
Yeah, and I would just like to add, thanks, Allison. We're so proud of you and all the great work that you're doing, especially with 2028. That's going to be very special. Yeah, I mean, the level of awareness, I'm just amazed at the number of people who said, I wasn't really sure what the Paralympic movement was. So, raising the awareness. I remember in London, and then prior to that, 2008, Beijing, the numbers were huge. So Sir Philip was saying, the ticket sales are crazy. We can't find enough seats at these venues because people are just gobbling up. And, that's a big deal. Back in the 80s and 90s, people weren't really sure what the movement was. People might go to an arena and see it, but you can't buy tickets to the games, to the venues. Everything is always sold out. And going into Tokyo, we're very sad Tokyo is one of my favorite places. I prepared for, all of us have prepared for a couple of years to be there for the whole summer. But we're very sad that it didn't take place. We're looking forward to next year. Ticket sales were absolutely off the charts. They were sold, I think, eight months in advance. So you're seeing a complete paradigm shift, a cultural shift in educating the public about what the Paralympic and excitement when you're in the arena and seeing wheelchair basketball and volleyball and archery. It's just electric. So we're very proud that we were able to bring this forward in film.
Good. Yeah, I'm going to try some here. All right. Next question.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Can you hear her?
Okay. This is for anyone who wants to answer, but what would you say, or what message would you send to someone who may be interested in going to the games, like competing in the games, but aren't sure because of certain challenges or fears that they might have? Like, what would you tell them or reassure them about the competing and being able to do certain things? Does that make sense?
I didn't get all that.
What would you say to someone who is unsure about going into a career towards the Paralympics and reassuring them about competing if they are interested?
I'll go ahead and take that one. I would say just try it. What are you unsure about? It's going to be, you know, an experience, an adventure, just like with anything. You know, I say give it a try. You've really got nothing to lose.
And I kind of, to piggyback what Allison said, there's an organization based in Los Angeles called Angel City Sports. And every summer they have their Angel City Games where athletes from around the country come, like a group in Texas or I think in Eugene, you know, they were depositing cans to raise funds to come to the Angel City Games. And they have so many sports that you can try. They have clinics. I know, you know, Utah's not that far away from Los Angeles. It's a quick plane trip. And I would encourage you to look at Angel City Sports is the name of the organization. Allison's very familiar with them. That's how we became acquainted with her. And so that might be a good way to start. Just try it, like she said.
Yeah, they do have grants, and that the games take place in the summer. This year it was virtual, but it's in the summer at UCLA, at the campus of UCLA, and they do have a grant program. So definitely look into that. All the sports, they're, you know, the clinics that they do, they're free. And, you know, you can try a bunch of different sports without having to commit to see, you know, if you're not sure which sport you might like or not. So.
And I just want to add that locally, in Utah anyway, the National Ability Center in Park City is somewhere to look up and maybe look into. Again, that's the National Ability Center in Park City. They probably are a little more focused on winter sports, but I know that they do a lot of great work up there as well.
Yeah, and I've actually been to that myself, and it's pretty cool. So thank you for that question. Next question.
All right, so first of all, I just wanted to thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk to us about this subject. I think it's so important to include it during Inclusion Weekend. I'm so happy that we got to learn some more about it. But the thing is, I feel like not a lot of people know about the Paralympics, or maybe just some more information about Paralympians. My question is, what do you think is a common misconception that people have about the Paralympics and Paralympians?
So common misconceptions about Paralympians and the Paralympic Games.
I've got a good one. So a lot of times people think that the Paralympics, they get them confused with the Special Olympics. And the Special Olympics are for people with, you know, mental disabilities. The Paralympics are for people with physical disabilities. So that's a huge misconception. You know, Paralympians could be missing arms, missing legs. You know, they show up however they are, but that's not a cognitive impairment. So that's one of the main misconceptions. but the Paralympics usually take place 2 weeks after every Olympic games in all the same venues, a lot of the similar venues. So that's, you know, they're side by side. That's what para means. Parallel doesn't mean paraplegic. Parallel side by side competition, side by side game.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on Allison, one of the things that happened within the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, is that the United States Olympic Committee, acronym USOC, completely changed to USOPC, United States Olympic Paralympic, and threw everybody for a loop. People were saying, well, why would they do that? Well, it's because the Paralympic movement is here to stay, and it has arrived, and it is no longer the little stepchild over here, due to the great work of Sir Philip and other people, Greg Spence and Andrew Parsons, the new president. The powers to be felt like, hey, we need to honor and respect the movement. It was a big deal.
Okay. Now, I've got a question for you, for all three of you. Now, I am pretty sure I know Allison's answer, but what's your favorite sport to watch?
Volleyball.
You don't have to say that because I'm on. It's okay. You can cheat on volleyball.
I would say ice sledge hockey because I actually got to go see it in person in 2015. Our organization sponsored the World Championships in Buffalo, and I was blown away. I had seen it, on TV and in videos online, but to see these guys on the ice in their ice sleds, it is brutal. It is kind of like the murder ball, and they're just the coolest guys too, so for me, ice sled hockey.
Yeah, and I also really enjoy wheelchair basketball. They play hardball. I mean, they are tough. Some of the scenes you saw, that wasn't stage TV. These guys hit hard and take really pretty hard falls and broken arms and whatnot. And it's beautiful to see a fadeaway jump shot from 40 feet out. It's amazing. It's quite a challenge to see that.
And I would piggyback off that and say any Paralympic sport that you watch, you're going to think of sports in a different way, especially some of the sports that you might not be familiar with. Like there's a sport out there called goalball. And what it is, it's for blind athletes, and they put blackout goggles on so they're all the same level of blindness, and it's like soccer, but the ball has a bell in it. So actually the stadium has to be completely quiet, and they've got their goggles on and they're rolling the ball. They have to hear the bell on the ball and try and get goals and block goals. And I've played it myself. We did a subversion event and I was horrible. I was diving the wrong way. And so, you just find if you're able to ever try an adaptive sport or watch it, you just, you get a real appreciation for how hard that actually is. And, Paralympians train every day, just like Olympians. They are, they're not able to compete at that level without having that, high performance training. So.
Now, I know that we haven't had any questions from the online side of things, but Lisa, do you have a question that you may want to ask before we start to wind up?
Well, I just, I didn't catch this the first time that I watched the film, but Allison, I was wondering if you could talk about the fact that I'm old enough that when I was in high school, there wasn't soccer for women. And so I was kind of really captivated by the fact that you trained with the men. And if you could talk a little bit about the evolution of the women's para volleyball team, or sitting volleyball?
Yeah.
That really fascinated me.
No, thank you. It was, like the film said, I played regular volleyball with, able-bodied people throughout high school. I played club. I played on my Division I varsity team, and I had no idea what the Paralympics were. And I, grew up in Manhattan Beach, California. I went to all girls private Catholic school. I mean, I was given every opportunity and told, that I was a leader, and, you grow up in this sense. Yet when I went to when I found the Paralympics, there was no women's team. And when I joined them, it was like the first time I was told I couldn't do something was when I joined an organization that was supposed to be inclusive. So that's a really interesting position to be in a parallel that, I didn't realize it at the time. And, when you're making history, you don't realize that you're doing it at the time, but I just wanted to play. And so I ended up playing with the men's team, made the team, was good enough to play with them, train with them. And this was standing volleyball. So before, in the 2000 games, they had sitting volleyball and they had standing volleyball. And those standing players supported me. Internationally, I wasn't allowed to play with them, but I would sit on the bench and watch them compete. And then we found out a few days before we went to Sydney in 2000 that I wouldn't be allowed to play because I was female. And so we started the process with the legally to try and change that. And it took me nearly 8 years, took us 8 years with the help of USA Volleyball and the US Olympic Committee, so that, I didn't want any other woman to have to go through that, to be told they weren't able to play, and you overcome so much just to be able to get on the court, and then be told that you weren't allowed to play because of your gender. But Athens was great. We were able to start a sitting volleyball team, and sitting, was different than standing. Obviously, sitting volleyball had been played in Europe and other countries for many, many years, and we didn't know about it. So it was a new game to us, but we learned that game and were able to come out with the bronze medal in the Athens 2004 games. But there's a whole story there of the standing volleyball players, because unfortunately with bringing on the women's contention, they kept the standing teams. So that was really, really heartbreaking for me for a long time, because all those people that had supported me through that process had now, their sport that they loved had been taken away. But a little precursor to 2028, standing volleyball, we are really pushing for it to come back in the form of beach volleyball. And that would be a standing Paralympic competition. So Para Beach was alive and well right before COVID, and we're starting to pick it back up, but we are training athletes now and hoping to get that as a sport for 2028. So more to come on that.
Great, great. All right. Well, I thank you for that answer, and Lisa, thank you for that question. So as we, finalize and round things up, I do want to thank all of you for your time and your efforts in investing into awareness on such an important, piece of sport, in sport history. And I think that, we are starting to gonna see those repercussions from that, that doping scandal from years and years. And, Stephen, I would love to see your other video about the U.S. Olympic gymnastics team and with Nasser and those things. That's definitely something I'd like to see too. So thank you for the time and the efforts that you and Brooke have done to make this film. Allison, your efforts and continued support for the LA 2028. That's going to be really exciting. And Lisa, for your continued support with the Utah Education Network. If there's anything else that you want to say, Lisa, I would appreciate it. And other than that, we are ready to close for the evening.
Just thank you to Mike and the audience, both online and in person. I'm really impressed that you all came. I think Brooke said that very well. So thanks, everybody.
All right. Well, thank you so much. All right, folks, we are going to end this evening. We are going to be recording this. So for those of you, if you'd like to see a copy of it, we'll let you know. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. Be well.